The Box of Delights by John Masefield, Chapter 11, Part 1. When he returned to the house, Maria had a little special edition of the Tatchester paper. "Yet another clerical outrage." "Kay," she said, "you're losing all the fun. They've tried to scrobble another clergyman who was walking into Tatchester from Tynerton." "Did they get him?" Kay asked. "No, they didn't get him," Maria said. "Here is the account. I'll read it. Church bandits foiled. It now seemed undoubted that the recent outrages at Tatchester are the work of an organised gang, sworn probably by some submersive maniac to prevent the millennial celebrations. We are happy to state that on this occasion the scoundrels were defeated. The Reverend Josiah Stalwart, rector of Tynerton, had undertaken in answer to the Archbishop's plea to be prepared in case of need to help with the services in the cathedral tonight. While proceeding to Tatchester along the Roman road, he was passed by a dark motor car in which there were two men. The car stopped, the two men got out and, coming towards him, asked if he would like a lift. He noticed that one of the men had a white splash upon his leggings and held his right hand behind his back. Not quite liking their looks and being naturally on his guard in view of recent events in Tatchester, he declined the lift, and at once the taller man attempted to fling over his head what seemed like a felt bag, while the accomplice tried to deal him a short arm punch to the ribs. The Reverend Stalwart avoided the felt bag and smote his shorter assailant on the head with the holly cudgel which had been lately presented to him by his admiring colleagues of the Tynerton hockey team, which he has so often led to victory. Being an exceedingly athletic gentleman, as well as a very good heavyweight boxer, Mr. Stalwart proceeded to deal with the bagman. The ruffians, realising too late the kind of man with whom they had to deal, exchanged rapid passwords, which the Reverend Stalwart thinks may be of assistance to the police. The shorter man said "cool, slop." The taller man said "mizzle." They succeeded in tripping the reverend gentleman by a throw unknown to him, darted into the car, the engine of which had been kept running, and were at once out of sight, going at great speed. Mr. Stalwart proceeded at once to Tatchester Police Station, and a full description of both bandits is being broadcast at half-hourly intervals from all stations. Mr. Stalwart is convinced that both criminals will bear marks of their meeting with him for some weeks. He would point out that the mystic words uttered by the reprobates are common thieves' slang. Cool slop is what is called back slang, the words "look police" turned backwards. It is a familiar warning in the underworld. The other word, mizzle, of doubtful derivation, means escape, fly, or hurry away. It is hardly credible that armed bandits should thus beset a public highway in broad daylight to kidnap members of a holy calling. We are delighted that in this case a little resolution and British pluck have defeated their purpose. Needless to say, the precautions of the police have been trebled on every road leading to Tatchester. In future, no clergyman will proceed to Tatchester to take Christmas duty save under police protection. We understand that the Tynerton Hockey Club has sent a long telegram of congratulation to their victorious captain. "You see," Maria said, "they've been diddled this time. The Reverend Josiah must be a bit of a boy to take on too." "I say, they will be furious," Kay said. "I don't know," Maria said. "You see here, the Stop Press News. They've got the two rectors and curates from the parish churches in Tatchester, the Reverend Arthur Pure, the Reverend William Godley, Thomas Hollyport and Charles Lecton, all disappeared, no one knows how." Consternation and anguish in rectory and curacy alike. It was now very nearly 2:30. Kay went back to his room thinking, "They've all had a good deal of success, but this setback, coming at this time, will make Abner furious, and he may proceed to extremes. I must find out what he intends to do." He locked himself into his room and climbed underneath the valance of the dressing table. He turned the knob of the box so he might go swiftly and little to Abner's room at Chester Hills. He was set down in the upper corridor of the Theological College, near a door that stood ajar under the label "Chief." Kay listened near this door. Nobody seemed to be within. He peeped in. No one was there. He slipped inside, and then, as he wished to examine the room, he resumed his proper shape and closed the door. The door clicked to with a snap. When it was fastened, he realised too late that it was a spring lock. He was shut in. "That may be awkward," he thought, "but here I am in Abner's own room. I must look about to see what I can see." By the clock on the little table near the wall, he saw that it was 2:27. "I'm early for the meeting," he thought. "I've got a minute or two before they come." Plainly, this part of the house was of the 16th century, or more than 100 years older than the rest of the building. It was a small, irregular room, with a low ceiling and little Elizabethan windows, still glazed, with old, thick, greenish glass in little panes, like the bottoms of bottles. The walls were covered with tapestries, much worn and faded. The mantel was great, solid, black oak, reaching to the ceiling, all carved with grotesque figures. There was a small alcove at the room's end. It contained a hard little camp bed that had not been made yet. Abner may be fond of food, Kay thought, but he's pretty tough if he sleeps in a bed like this. There were books on the bookshelves, sermons on several occasions, Tillotson's sermons, Dr. Beatty's sermons, Dr. South's sermons, the Reverend Hard's sermons, the Reverend George Crabb's sermons, sermons for the years, etc., etc. But on all the books the dust was thick. Kay went to the window to see what could be seen from it. The window was shut and the glass was so thick that he could not see through it. To his surprise, when he opened it, the window, which had looked like 4 loopholes divided by stone mullions, opened all in one piece. He found that it opened on a charming little leads between 2 pitches of steep roof. There were ladders up at these pitches, and apparently ladders leading down on the other sides of them. Here is a way of escape, Kay thought, in case of need. He could judge from the shadows that this window opened to the southeast. After this, Kay spent a minute poking the knobs in the carved mantelpiece, hoping that one of them might work a spring and reveal a secret stair. Then suddenly he heard voices just outside the door. Abner was saying, "But I left this drawer ajar." A key pressed into the lock. Kay just had time to press the knob of his box so that he might go small when the door opened and Abner and Joe came in. Kay squeezed into a recess by the fireplace behind the tapestry. "Funny thing about that door," Abner said. "I left it ajar purposely. Someone's been in here and left the window open." He shut the window. He went into the alcove, took a hasty glance around the bed and behind the tapestries. "I'll inquire about that door and window," he said. "I wonder who's been in. Do you know who's been in?" "No, Chief," Joe said. "Of course I don't." "Well, why don't you? You've been in charge here while me and my wife have been in Tatchester. Have you been in?" "No," Joe said. "Of course I haven't." "No, of course about it," Abner snapped. "But as I've told you many times, there's a little trap in store for the man who comes prying in here, and you too scared to try it. I shall know tonight who's been in. Look out for squalls if I find it's you." "It wasn't me." "Now then, listen to me. Who sent those 2 fools to tackle Josiah Stalwart?" "I did," Joe growled. "Didn't I give strict orders that no scrobbling party was to consist of less than 4, 3 to scrobble, 1 to keep the car ready?" "That was before we were short-handed." Did I or did I not give those orders?" "I suppose you did." "Don't you know that I did?" "Now, Chief," Joe said, "chuck it. I'd have sent 4 after Stalwart if we had 4 to send. I hadn't 4. You never told us Stalwart was a champ. We didn't know. You told me I was to get him scrobbled, and I did what we could. If you had seen 11 and 12 before 17 dress their wounds, you might feel a little sorry for them." "Sorry? Oh, I'd have made them feel a little sorry. What did Stalwart do to them? 2 against 1, too." "He cracked 12's crown across, a fair treat. He give 11 an eye, like a stained glass window. They're marked for a month, the pair." "And a jolly good job," Abner said. "I wish Stalwart had given them a cauliflower ear each. I wish he'd knocked their silly noses west and banged their ribs blue, and yours too." Now, Chief," Joe said. "That's not fair. They're only done their duty, and they were badly hurt doing it." "They were hurt disobeying plain orders." "Chief," Joe said, "we'll set that aside if you don't mind. I've other things to say to you now. You see, Chief, while you've been in Tatchester, I've been thinking of things, and I've made up my mind." "Oh?" Abner said. "Repeat that, will you?" "I've made up my mind," Joe said. "So you've made up your mind, did you?" Abner asked. "Yes, Chief, I did." "I didn't know you had a mind, but I'm glad to hear it. So you've made it up?" "Yes, Chief, I have." "What did you decide?" Abner asked. "Tomorrow's Christmas Day." "So I hear. What about it?" "Christmas Day's rather a special day. We don't like keeping all those poor captives away from their home on Christmas Day." "We don't like? Who are we?" "All the lot of us. It's not Christmas dealing. We've spread a lot of misery taking these poor people. Just now, fathers from children, husbands from wives, and the poor little choir boys have been looking forward to hanging up their stockings. It's more than we can bear." "Well," Abner asked, "we want you to return all the captives tonight by air with a £10 note apiece, the ones we got in a bank robbery. Then the whole thing would pass off as a rag, and it would tell in our favour if we ever come to be tried." "So," Abner said, "we don't like, and we want this and that, and a made-up mind of all piping up with mutiny. Were you thinking of getting rid of little Abner, Joe, and then putting up the command yourself? You, with a made-up mind, would run this brotherhood to some tune." "I was thinking nothing of the sort, Chief," Joe said, "but you're making a mistake, and so we warn you." "Ah," Abner said, "a mistake. Well, forewarned is forearmed. Thank you, Joe, and now we'll go down to see the captives." "There was another thing we got to speak about," Joe said stubbornly. "Got to speak about?" Abner said. "Then speak it, proceed." "I've been telling them about your magic and that," Joe said. "What we don't see is why you don't use magic to find this box that you set such store by." "You're a cricketer, aren't you, Joe?" Abner said. "A fast bowler with a terrifying inswerve." "I suppose I can plug 'em a bit," said Joe, with modest pride. "Sometimes I suppose even you come up against a bat who hits you all around the compass." "That might happen to anyone," Joe said. "It's the same with magic," Abner said. "You don't believe in magic, I think, but perhaps this may convince you. Watch now." He lifted his hand in a strange way and uttered some foreign words in a loud, clear voice. Instantly, the figure of a boy with a bony, unintelligent and unpleasant face appeared through Abner's desk. "What do you want from me now?" he growled. "No pertness," Abner said. "Tell the gentleman what Cole Hollins did with his box." "He gave it to somebody to keep for him," the boy said. "I've told you that before." "Learn civility," Abner said. "To whom did he give it?" "I don't know. He put spells around it. I couldn't see the person. Let me go." "If you're not careful and civil, I'll peg you into the waterfall," Abner said. "Am I nearer getting the box than I was?" "Yes, you're very near to it," the boy said. "Shall I get it?" "You'll have it under your hand today. Now I want to go. I've told you everything." "Don't try to dictate to me," Abner said. "The gentleman would like to ask you something. Ask him anything you want, Joe." Joe did not much relish speaking to the boy, but at last asked, "What's in the box?" "The way into the past. I will not be questioned by you." "Yes, you will," Abner said. "Anything else, Joe?" "Yes," Joe said. "There is. If Cole Orleans had hold of this box, why couldn't he go into the past by it and escape from Abner here?" "The master there put spells on it. Shut your mouth now and let me go," the boy said angrily. "You shall suffer for this," Abner said. "Is there anything more you wish to ask, Joe?" "Yes," Joe said. "What will win the national?" "Kubadar by 7 lengths. Now I'm going." "Wait, my young insolent friend," Abner said. "You will have little lesson before you go. Come here." As the boy approached, Abner tapped him on the top of his head with a timetable. The head at once telescoped into his chest, and the legs telescoped into his body. "Off now," Abner said. "You'll stay plugged under the waterfall for 7 weeks for insolence. Perhaps that may teach you." The boy vanished into his desk, howling loudly from the middle of his chest. "A general tendency to mutiny, it seemed," Abner said. "I must take steps, I see. Now come on down to the zoo." Kay was peering from his little cranny to see what was done. Abner touched something, Kay could not see what, in the corner over his head. Then he went to the hearthrug and stamped upon it with some force. There came a clacking noise. Kay saw the fireplace slide open like a door, revealing a lift lit with electric light. "Come on, then," Abner said. The 2 men stepped into the lift. Kay, who was only 2 feet from the door of it, darted into it after them as the fireplace closed to upon them. Abner pressed a red button in the lift wall, and the lift slowly began to move down. Kay counted and tried to guess how far down it went. It went slowly. It passed 2 different possible landings. When at last it stopped, it did so with a jolt as though it were at the bottom of its shaft. The chief opened the door. As he and Joe stepped out, Kay followed. He was in a wide, high cavern or gallery in the rock. It stretched out from left and to right. It was not less than 14 feet high by 10 broad. It had every sign of being a natural cavern, worn by water and smoothed underfoot by man. In the main, it was now a dry cavern. The walls glistened with wet here and there. In some places they shone as from some local quartz crystal in the rock. There was a little pause and silence when they left the lift. Kay heard water dropping, drop by drop, like the tick of a very slow clock. Far, far away, too, water was running over a fall. The two men turned to the right. Kay followed. At every 10 yards or so, Abner would stop, turn out the light, and turn on another to light the way ahead. When they had gone perhaps 40 yards from the lift, Kay saw what seemed like a range of ships' cabins stretching along the side of the gallery. Abner went to the door of the first of these, pulled aside a shutter, turned on a light to light the cell within, and spoke through the opening. "And how is the dear bishop?" he said. "Christmas sermon getting on well? Well, well, well. And will you tell me where the package is?" "I tell you, ruffian," the bishop answered, "that I know nothing of any package. These pleasantries had better cease." "Tell me where the package is," Abner said, "and they shall cease, and starvation shall cease, and you shall have savoury omelette and coffee and rolls with honey. What, you won't? Water from the well, then, and darkness to meditate upon it." He switched out the light, fastened the shutter, and moved to another door. "Dean," he said, "still cheerful? Splendid. Can you tell me of the package yet? What, you don't know anything about it? That won't do for me, my Dean. Think again. Keep cheerful." He switched out the light and moved to another door. "Ha!" he said. "The presenter, I think." Here he began a song. "Tell me, shepherd, have you seen my package pass this way?" "A straitjacket's on its way to you," the presenter said, "and then you'll sing another tune. What do you mean by a package and shutting us all up in here?" "Oh, a proud stomach still," Abner said. "A little cold water is very cold Christmas fare, you'll find, and not one of you proud prelates will taste more until you tell me where the package is." He went from cell to cell asking the inmates where the box was. Some said, "We don't know what you mean." Others said, "You are mad. The police will soon run you down, to be sure." "Don't you be too sure," Abner said. "And here, I think, are the canons minor. How that brings back my Latin. Major, minor, minimus. And what are my minor canons going to tell me of the package?" "A judge and jury will give you your package, and a heavy package it will be, and you will carry it for a long time," said young Canon Doctrine, who had once been the famous 3/4. By this time, Abner had reached the end of the cells. He raised his voice so that he could be heard all along the gallery. "So you are all stubborn," he said. "You'll find that I'm stubborn, that the Rock is stubborn, and not all the police in Europe could find you where you are now. One of you knows where this package is. Tell me, and you shall be home within the day. If not, I can last, and the Rock will last, but I don't think you will." He then turned to Joe, who was at his side. "By the way, Joe," he said, still in his loud voice, "this cell at the end here, we put the Earl into it, you remember, because he wouldn't pay the ransom. 7 years ago, I think it was. You remember?" "I remember well," Joe said. "A dark, handsome man, the Earl, very well dressed." "That's the man," Abner said, unlocking the cell door. "Just step in, will you, and see if his bones are still there. The ransom didn't come, if you recollect, but I expect the rats did, or am I wrong?" Kay saw Joe step into the lighted cell and pretend to rummage in the corners. "Do you see any bones still?" Abner asked. "Just the skull and a rib or two," Joe answered. "Oh, and his marriage ring." "Quite so," Abner said, locking him into the cell and switching out the light. "And now, my dear Joe, with a made-up mind, meditate with these holy men on the error of your ways. Another time you may not be so brave as to tell me I'm making a mistake." Joe, who was a very strong man, leapt at the door and beat upon it. "Let me out, you hound!" he cried. "Let me out, or I'll wring your neck." "You mean, and I'll wring your neck," Abner said. "I'll keep you there for the present, thank you, because I think you really might. Sleep well, dear Joe. The floor of that cell is a little uneven, but you won't notice it much after the first week." Joe continued to beat upon the door, and to shout threats and curses. Abner moved away, whistling a few bars of Schubert's unfinished symphony. Kay, who was horror-struck, moved away after him. Then suddenly, from a cell not yet visited, Peter's voice piped up. "If you please," Peter said, "I think I know where the package that you want is." "Ha!" Abner said. "So, and where is the package?" "I can't explain it," Peter said, but I could take you there. Oh, could you? Abner said, and give us the slip on the way, no doubt. We're not quite so green. Where is it? Please, I can't explain. Peter said, I say that you can explain. Where is it? In Seeking's house? In the garden? In the town? At the inn? Where is it? I think it's peeping out of a rabbit burrow somewhere on King Arthur's camp, please. Peter said. Whereabouts in the camp? Abner said. I could take you to it, Peter said, but I can't explain just where. Oh, yes, you can, Abner said. You could mark the very place on a 6-inch-to-the-mile map. When did you see it? If you please, I thought I saw a package just before they scrobbled the Punch and Judy man up on the Butler's Down. Ha! Abner said. Well, you thought wrong then. Think again, and think of mushrooms for breakfast. Have you thought of them? Yes, please, sir, Peter said. Well, that's all the breakfast you'll get, Abner said. That may teach you not to try to deceive me with another time. Now, snivel. He moved away up the gallery so rapidly that Kay could hardly keep pace. As he came near Joe's cell, Joe cried, Let me out, Abner, let me out, I say. Finding that his cries had no effect and that Abner was going past, paying no attention, he changed his tone. I say, old man, he said, a joke's a joke, but don't leave an old pal here in the dark. Not old Joe, Abner. Yes, old Joe, Abner replied. He had gone past Joe's cell when something seemed to strike him. By the way, Joe, he said, you don't believe in magic, do you? Instantly out of the air there came little faces, grinning and wicked. They had pointed ears and pointed teeth. These faces flitted swiftly through the bars of Joe's cell. They buzzed round Joe's head and spoke, sometimes in squeaky, sometimes in shrill, and sometimes in very musical voices. You don't believe in magic, do you, Joe? Joe beat at them as though they were wasps, but they were too quick to be hit. Abner watched the effect of these imps with their words upon Joe's terror-stricken face. No, he doesn't believe in magic, Joe doesn't, he said. However, take your time, you will presently, Joe, he said. And at that, he switched out the light and marched on, turning swiftly up a gallery which Kay had not noticed. Kay followed, running where Abner's footsteps led. Presently, a light went up. Abner had opened the door into the lighted room. Kay slipped into the room behind Abner before the door closed. It was a bare room, carpeted with thick red carpet. Certain strange magical symbols were painted on the walls in red. In the middle of the room, on a pedestal, was a bronze head which Kay had seen before. Kay noticed that the bronze head's eyelids were closed, and the head drooped as though asleep when he entered the room. But as Abner lifted his right hand, the eyelids opened, the head raised itself, the lips moved, and a voice from within it said, Command me, master. Tell me of our plans, Abner said. The voice spoke from the head. Your agents have now captured every clergyman attached to the cathedral, as well as most of the cathedral servants and staff. Is anything going wrong? Yes, the bronze head replied. You should have begun, as I told you, much later in the day. You have given them time to act against you. Don't criticize me, slave, Abner said, and the head at once cowered down upon the pedestal and began to whimper. Stop that, Abner said. Tell me now, what are they trying to do against me? All sorts of things, the head said. Mainly telephoning and telegraphing, trying to get substitutes. With what success? Abner said. Not much yet, the head said. It is Christmas. All the clergy are busy in their own parishes, but substitutes will be found. There's a body of friends of the cathedral. I told you of them. The Tatchester trustees. They are the ones. They will rake up clergy from all sorts of places. You will see. Will I? Abner said. Will they? We'll try that. He raised his right hand in a peculiar manner. Instantly, a red-winged figure rose up out of the floor and bowed before him. Cut all the Tatchester telephone wires and telegraph wires, he said. Wait, bring in those Tatchester trustees. I go, sir, the winged figure said, and disappeared through the ceiling. That won't get you very far, the brazen head said. Some of the substitute clergy have already started. Abner raised his right hand again. Instantly, another red figure rose from the floor. Command me, master, it said. Dislocate all railway traffic from 20 miles around Tatchester. Jam the points. I go, sir, the figure answered and disappeared through the ceiling. That won't be much use, the bronze head said. They will come by road. Abner raised his hand again. A third red figure rose from the floor and asked for orders. "Make every road impassable for 20 miles around Tatchester," he said. "But stay, that won't be enough. We must make the air impassable too. Stay here one moment." He lifted his left hand in a strange way, and instantly an old crone was thrust through the floor by little red hands towards him. She looked so old that she might have been 1,000 years or more. Nose and chin almost met. Her face was the colour of old wood. She seemed terrified of Abner. "What do you want with me, master?" she said. "I want a storm of the north and the east," Abner said, "with snow." "I can't give it. I can't give it," the old woman said. "You ask too much. I can only sell a storm for a great sum, a bag of amethysts." "Give me a storm from the north and the east," Abner said, "or I will torment you in a way that you'll remember." "No, give me at least half a bag of amethysts," the old woman said, "for I need them for a cordial that I am making." "I will give you a quarter bag," Abner said. "Now let me have the storm." He produced from his pocket a little canvas bag, which did contain amethysts. Kay saw the stones as he emptied them out. A very meagre quarter of the bag was handed to the old woman, who produced in turn from her pocket a little leather bag tied with 3 strings at the mouth. "Don't open more than 2 of those strings," the old woman said warningly, "or you may be sorry." "Don't tell me how I am to proceed," Abner said. "Away with her!" At once the little red hands plucked the old woman away.